Next, we're going to talk about divine rational expressions. But before we get into the division of rational expression, I want to do a little review when it comes to division of fractions. So, say you have a fraction a over b, and you're dividing by another fraction. Let's call that c over d. Now, when it comes to division of fraction, we would do cross multiply, and then what you did cross multiply, you put into the original position of the first fraction. But let's not do cross multiply, meaning diagonal multiplication. What we're going to do is basically we are going to change the division of fraction into a multiplication of fraction. So when we're going from division of fraction, we keep the first fraction the same, a over b, change it to multiplication, but now instead of c over d, you're going to flip the second fraction, do the reciprocal, so it's going to be d over c. Once you change it to multiplication, then it's the same as before. Numerator multiplied with numerator, denominator multiplied with denominator. So, to reiterate, when you have division of fraction, in order to change it to multiplication, you keep the first fraction the same, then you flip, do the reciprocal of the second fraction. So that way, even though you start off with division, it's going to be essentially the same process as the previous example that we did for multiplication of rational expressions. In this example, our first rational expression is 15m to the third minus 15m squared plus 40m over m plus 1 divided by our second rational expression, where it's 5m squared minus 10m over 2m squared minus m minus 3. Alright, so just like I said before, I'm not going to write out the work because of the limited space I have here. I do recommend that you pause the video, try to work out on your own, and see if you can match your factor with mine. If not, pause the video again, double check your work and see what happened. And again, I'm just going to be using the same techniques as shown from the previous videos and the previous examples that were taught on factoring. Now, before we can actually get into factoring, just like how I mentioned before, when we have a division of fraction, we're going to change it into multiplication. So we're going to keep the first fraction the same. So it's going to be 15m to the third minus 50m squared plus 40m over m plus 1. And then we're going to change it to multiplication. In order to be a multiplication, make sure that we're going to do the reciprocal or flip the second fraction. So what's in the denominator will now become the numerator, 2m squared minus m minus 3 over what's in the numerator will now become the denominator, so 5m squared minus 10m. Alright, now we get into the works of factoring. And like I said before, pause the video, try to work out or write out the work for factoring, and I do recommend that you write it in your notebook so that you can see the whole process on how to simplify when it comes to multiplication and division of rational expressions. Now, here, when you factor, the only thing you can factor is the numerator, because if you look at the denominator, m plus 1, that's in its simplest form, so the only thing we have to worry about is the numerator. So when we factor in the numerator, we're going to have our GCF, which is 5m, times the factors, which will be 3m minus 4 times m minus 2 over m plus 1. Multiplying. Now in the second rational expression, But before I go into that, if your factors did not match your mind, again, I recommend that you pause the video, double check your work, and make sure that it matches with mine, so that way you know what you're doing. If not, again, double check your work. Next, we're going to factor the numerator of the second rational expression. Now, when you factor, you should have gotten 2m minus 3 over m plus 1. And if you did not get those factors, again, pause the video, double check your work, make sure it matches, make sure what step you forgot or what tiny mistakes you may have made. Again, double check your work before moving on. Lastly, for the denominator, you should have gotten 5m times m minus 2. Alright, again, if you didn't get that, again, double check, make sure you see what you need supposed to do in order to get those factors before moving on. Alright, once we finish factoring, since it's multiplying, I'm going to put the factors next to each other in parentheses. So let's combine it as one fraction. So in my numerator, I'm going to put all the factors I have that's at the top next to each other. So we have 5m, 3m minus 4 times m minus 2 times 2m minus 3 times m plus 1. So that's quite long for the numerator. Now let's focus on the denominator. First I have m plus 1 in parentheses times 5m and m minus 2. Alright, so let's simplify, meaning I'm going to divide common factors. Anything that you divide will become 1. So when we're dividing common factors, again, it will become 1. We're just going to simplify. I notice I have 1 5m at the top and 1 5m in the denominator. So I'm going to divide these two and they become 1. And as I'm checking, I notice I have one factor of m minus 2 in the numerator and one factor of m minus 2 in the denominator. So I'm going to divide them. Both of them will become 1. And then I notice that I have one factor of m plus 1 in the numerator and one factor of m plus 1 in the denominator. So I'm going to divide both of them and they will become 1. So I'm going to write out the factors that I have left over. So I have 1 times 3m minus 4 times 1 times 2m minus 3 times the last one over 1 times 1 times 1. Alright, so when I simplify that, in my numerator, I'm going to have 1 times 3m minus 4 times 1 times 2m minus 3 times 1, which is basically 3m minus 4 times 2m minus 3 over 1 times 1 times 1, which is just 1. Now, since the factors are over 1, then technically my final answer, when I simplify, it would just be 3m minus 4 times 2m minus 3. So if it's over 1, you can still simplify the fraction. Simply what you have in the numerator, that's your answer. So my final answer here is this. So 3m minus 4 times 2m minus 3. And again, all I did this part step by step to illustrate that all the common factors did not disappear, did not cancel out. Simply it would divide into 1. And then as you can see in the denominator, 1 times 1 times 1 is just 1. And since the denominator is 1, basically your final answer is what you have in the numerator. That's the only time you could do that, is if you have the 1 in the denominator, then your final answer is basically what you have in the numerator. That's the only time you can do that.